Hallo YouTube und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Our Lives Beginnings and Our Life. Auch nach einem Jahr kriege ich es nicht hin. Our Life Beginnings and Always. Wir machen weiter mit dem Wedding DLC und wir haben jetzt die Vorbereitungen abgeschlossen. Deswegen bin ich gespannt, was jetzt noch passiert. Also jetzt ist wahrscheinlich noch die Zeit zwischen Vorbereitung und Hochzeit. Und mal sehen, was dazwischen passiert und ja. Und wie schnell wir dann tatsächlich durchkommen. Rudi, guten Morgen, wie geht's dir? Dann fange ich einfach mal an. Ich freue mich schon wieder. Oh. Natürlich habe ich wieder die Einstellung vergessen. So, okay. So, jetzt können wir starten. Okay. Stimmt, damit haben wir geendet. Das ist jetzt der nächste Tag. When you arrived for your session that day, you noticed Baxter's foot was tapping against the floor in a steady rhythm. It seemed the lessons from the day before were still on his mind. Heya. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So nice to see you again. With all of the work, planning, and effort a thing of the past, you were having your final appointment with Baxter. The two of you situated yourselves on the purple couch in your normal spots, though Cove was unable to treat the visit as anything near normal. His legs had stiffened from nervousness so badly the bend in his knees was like the snap of two branches. He nearly fell on the cushion. Baxter, on the complete opposite end of the comfort spectrum from Cove, smiled with a natural ease. Oh, well then. This is the last time we're likely to see each other until the day of your wedding. Are you feeling prepared? Nee, können wir gerne machen, Björni. Können wir gerne machen. Vielleicht ist das heute auch drin. So ein bisschen Frust rauslassen. Super müde und mega Kopfschmerzen. Auch Bodi fühle ich. Fühle ich sehr. Ich hoffe, es geht bei dir schnell wieder besser. Ja. Are you prepared? Yes, I'm ready. Cuff didn't react whatsoever, not to Baxter or you. He was frozen solid. Baxter ran his hands along the inside edge of his jacket and placed his most encouraging smile on his face.
To be honest,
in all honesty, you've both done beautifully. Your wedding will be an event to be proud of, and I'll be there to make certain it flows smoothly. Hallo, ich muss mich leider in den Log verabschieden, weil ich die Aufgabe von gestern Nachmittag heute weitermachen muss und damit vom PC weg. Ich wünsche euch aber ganz viel Spaß und dir gute Erholung den Tag über noch und für deine Katzis. Das muss ich auf jeden Fall machen. Ich habe schon Lissi heute Morgen nicht losgelassen, ne? Aber danke für deinen Lurk und viel Erfolg bei deiner Aufgabe da. Mutanten verkloppen. Yes, Booty. Yes. Das ist eine private Aggressionstherapie. All you need to do now is enjoy yourselves. Each line Baxter spoke chipped away at the frosted shell around Cove until it cracked. Your fiancé replied in a small voice. Thank you. Wow, thanks. Now, having broken the ice, Baxter easily shifted back into work mode. He touched the tips of his fingers to a pile of papers on the desk to his side. I've got the details for the hotel for you here. I was able to book 2 standard single bedrooms for you to use to get ready in. Ich wollte gerade sagen so, wie 2 Zimmer. Aber ja, okay, ergibt Sinn, ja. Ergibt Sinn. Was haltet ihr eigentlich von so First-Look-Dingern? Situationen. Also dieses, wo sich im Prinzip der Bräutigam hinstellt und die Braut kommt dann halt so von hinten angedackelt und dann dreht er sich um und dieses First-Look-Ding. Was haltet ihr davon? Ich finde das nämlich irgendwie voll schön. Wenn man das natürlich auch schön macht, ne? Wenn auch die Bindung zum Partner dann und so auch stimmt. Weil manchmal ist das halt einfach nur so ein Man muss natürlich auch der Typ dafür sein, finde ich. Aber so an sich, der Gedanke an so einen Moment, den finde ich eigentlich relativ schön. The hotel is minutes from the ceremony venue, so you won't need to make a trip out there the morning of.
Not bad.
Not bad. Thanks, Baxter. You're good at this. Cove's admittance was almost embarrassed. He scratched at his cheek and shared a look with you. You remembered how hard of a time the two of you had getting a room when you had come into Sunset Bird for your mom's anniversary. It was an ordeal. Ach so, okay. Cove chuckled, knowing you were reminiscing over the same experience. Baxter accepted the compliment earnestly without prying. He leaned an elbow against his chair's armrest and propped his head up against his hand.
Glad to hear it.
I'm glad to hear that. I do strive to be. He continued to relax, following up his prior motion with the cross of his legs. And I very much appreciate your great patience with a series of questions throughout this experience. I do still have yet one more topic I'd like to discuss. When you leave here, the wedding planning is over. Do either of you have an opinion on seeing your beloved before the ceremony? Is it das? That was not something Cove had considered. He didn't have words to back up the hasty interruption. Baxter smoothed it over by elaborating. I know some couples follow a tradition of completely cutting contact in the lead up to the wedding, so it's a reuniting when they come together for the ceremony. Others stay apart physically, though communicate over the phone, and there are those who don't participate in that whatsoever and stay with one another. This time, Cove gave himself space to consider it, letting the concept sink in.
I don't know.
I mean, I didn't have plans to be away from Jenny. You know, I like being around her when that's an option. But I guess maybe we could do that if it's a special thing for weddings. He laughed breathily and sent Baxter a question of his own. Are you gonna make fun of me for being clingy?
Never.
Never. He knew just how much Baxter meant that. Cove, however, didn't have the same context. Okay. Good. People shouldn't make fun of him for that. You really should change your stance. Teasing Cove is fun. That's lucky for the both of us. I'm clingy too. You're very sweet, Baxter, but he's definitely clingy. You patted Cove on the shoulder reassuringly. You had to laugh at Cove calling himself out for that. Ich glaube, ich würde einfach nur so, it's okay. In disbelief, Cove's eyes bounced back and forth between you and your planner. He was able to express his want to always be around you, and no one in the room had given him a hard time for it. Cove absolutely beamed at that revelation. It was a pre-wedding miracle. You were charmed by both his overt affection for you and by how cute he genuinely was. But you made an effort to not be entirely distracted, and you gave an answer to the question at hand. Cove, would you mind staying in a separate hotel room? We can meet at the wedding later. Cove, would you mind staying in a separate hotel room? We can talk over the phone. Cove, I want to share a room with you. Ich glaube, das mit dem over the phone ist eigentlich ganz interesting. Yes, definitely. Call me. Call me. Call me. I'm glad you asked, cause yeah, I'm a little clingy. Cove shuffled the balls of his feet against the carpet, all the while glancing over at you bashfully. You held on to his sweet gaze as long as you could. Held, sorry. You were going to have to go without it for a while soon. Ich muss mal gerade kurz Fenster aufmachen, es ist so warm hier. So, ich bin wieder da. Off to the side, Baxter watched the two of you from his spot on the office chair. The fondness in his expression for you and Cove had tipped past his usual professional distance. Not wanting to ruin the moment, he spoke in a soft voice.
Perfect.
Very good. Everything is settled then. From there, the rest of the meeting was spent going over final details and the whole plan step by step. Baxter wanted to make sure you were on the same page and prepared for the events ahead. He shared amusing anecdotes of past weddings he'd planned. Some highlighted actual potential pitfalls you could intentionally avoid, and others were one-in-a-million debacles. The most unbelievable was a story of a particular awkward ceremony from the year before. The stage was set with flowers, a walkway, seating, and wooden arch at the end. Arch? Heißt es Arch oder Arc? He was looking on in a final survey primed for the guests to arrive when an out-of-control truck with a backend full of apples drove straight through. Oh. The driver was unharmed when he got the truck to stop, and the couple were still married, albeit in a much simpler arrangement, but Baxter distantly remembers the almost comedic surrealness of it. Seeing a completed wedding and then having it flattened back to the ground in the blink of an eye was something he never expected or hoped to experience. While the planner chuckled in recollection, Cove leaned over to ask if you thought there'd be any reason a food truck might have to be at your venue. You were pretty sure there wasn't. The stories and laughter continued until the end of the appointment. It reminded you of the final day of class before summer vacation. Technically, you were still in school, but everyone was eager for the fun to begin. Then goodbyes were exchanged as usual, with promises to see each other soon, like there had been every time you'd visited. However, when you left the office, you had to wonder if you would ever go back there again. When you saw Baxter next, it would be at the wedding location. Maybe you would return someday if you and Cove decided to renew your vows and needed a planner again. Or maybe you could visit just as friends and not as customers. Or maybe you try a different planner next time. Hello, friends. Under a white starry sky, you and Cove hopped into his car to head back. Despite having done it many times before, it felt completely different that time. After the click of seatbelts being snapped into place, there was a silence in the cab. None of the boisterousness from minutes ago had come along with you. Cove's expression was pensive as he rounded the curb and got the car out onto the street. A gentle rumbling resonated over you from wheels rolling across the tarmac. That was the only word he managed to articulate before his mouth clamped up tight again. He had an internal struggle made visible, and ultimately he made enough peace with it to finally smile. Right now I have a lot going on in my head, you probably guessed that. There's so much I want to say to you about us and what's happened, all of this. But it would probably make more sense if I said it during the wedding, right? Ja, vielleicht. His voice dropped to a complete whisper, but his grip on the steering wheel intensified. It's so close now. Cove took in a deep breath through his nose, allowing his fingers to loosen again. That was followed by him answering his own question.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Pretend this didn't happen. I can wait for you. Oh, come on, you can give me a hint of what you're planning. You can say it whenever you're ready, if you ever are. Dang it, I'm so curious now. There's no way I can act like I didn't hear that. You simply nodded. You whined in a disappointed protest. I can wait for you. Thanks, you're always nice to me. That warmed you up inside. Nothing felt better than knowing he could rely on you. But there's a lot of other things I'm thinking about too. Like the fact that these are the last moments of our lives together, not being married. Not being married. So, after this, I'll be your husband and you'll be my wife. Unbelievable. Oh. Yeah, I love you, Cove. This is just amazing. It can happen soon enough. You were speechless. Na komm, wir sagen wieder I love you. Das ist irgendwie immer so, wenn wir nicht wissen, was wir sagen sollen. I love you. I love you too. Twisting in your seat, you let the side of your face rest against the back of the chair. You rested there at the end of such a long project, watching your almost husband as he continued to drive ahead. The two of you were moving forward, full of hope and anticipation for the very near future. After days, weeks, years of waiting to commit yourself to the love of your life, the morning of your wedding arrived. Oh, das war jetzt aber ziemlich schnell. Das war jetzt aber ziemlich schnell. Das heißt, in 5 Minuten fängt ungefähr die Hochzeit an, also 5 Spielminuten so. Und in der Orientierung, die ich hatte, um in etwa zu planen, wie viel ich noch spielen muss, hat das 45 Minuten gedauert? Naja, we will see, we will see. It was a realization that hit you as you laid in a dark hotel room. You were still half asleep and totally cozy. You were awake and feeling peaceful. You were fully awake and full of excitement. You were wide awake from nerves. Ganz im Ernst. The nerves. The nerves are hitting. You weren't able to tell exactly how long you'd been up at that point. You rolled over to check the time, sat on the side table next to the bed with the stock standard digital clock flashing the current hour and minute in bright red lines. It was time to get up, at least it was for you. It was if you didn't want to be late or show up to your wedding in pajamas. And thinking of that, it struck you that Cove had to have gotten up as well if he hadn't woken up even earlier. Reaching over to the table, you got hold of your phone. Clicking it in showed a string of new messages. It wasn't hard to guess why people might have things they wanted to say to you that particular day, but one name on the list caught your attention over all others. Cove. He'd messaged you. You opened your chat with him instantly and read each individual text. I'm awake. I want to call you, but I don't want to wake you up if you're asleep. It's important to have a good night's sleep, especially now. And all the time. You can call me when you want to. I love you. You'd started grinning before you'd even finished the set, and by the end, your heart had started pounding painfully. Cove brought you joy so effortlessly. You tapped at the screen to switch from messages to his contact page, clicking to call. There was already an answer the moment you'd lifted the phone to your ear. Hello, Jenny? Yeah, I'm here. Oh, cool. His tone grew softer and you pressed the phone closer to hear. Congratulations on your wedding. Oh. Congratulations on your wedding. He chimed back happily. Thank you. It was a lovely moment to share, both mundane and incredibly special in its own way. But then Cove gave a deep sigh. The gentle voice turned to a distant whisper. It's almost time. He brought some levity back to his tone with a joking question. Would it be wrong to say I'd rather go see you instead of getting ready? Warte, was? Would it be wrong? So, no, not to say, but you shouldn't actually do it. Think of how much planning we did. We can't let that go to waste. Forget that planning we did. Let's just hang out. You firmly, but affectionately huffed at the suggestion. Ich würde sagen so, nein, es ist nicht falsch. Aber wir sollten es halt, also wollten wir uns an unserem Plan halten. That got a laugh from Cove. I'll stay here. After making a declaration to be responsible, he stalled there. All right. Yeah. Cove's yeah wasn't directed at anything in particular. He was grasping to fill space, to buy time while he sorted his thoughts. We're getting married. I'm going to marry you. The gravity of the occasion fell on Cove heavier and heavier as he vocalized it. My stomach hurts. Cove! You weren't able to say another word before he sucked in an audible breath. I have to go right now. Right now. I'm getting nervous. It's gonna get worse, but I want to do this more than anything else. Your heart went out to the man you loved. You could relate all too well to the feelings he was confronting. There was a gasp as he finally let out the air he'd been holding in. Bye, I love you. It'll all be okay, Cove. Well, we'll make it through. Bye, see you soon. Don't force yourself too hard. I love you too. Goodbye. I love you too. Without letting his determination lapse, Cove ended the call. As short of an exchange it was, hearing his voice had been such a nice way to start the day. You knew you'd made the right choice to not fully separate. With great effort, you pulled yourself away from the safety of the blanket. You had to do it. You wouldn't be able to see him if you stayed there. Your clothes were hanging up against the door of the small hotel closet, and you went over to double-check the outfit. It all looked fine. You assured yourself while taking slow, calming breaths. Everything would go all right. From there, you went into the bathroom to brush your teeth and shower before anything else. Once clean and dry and half-dressed, you went back out into the main space of the hotel room. You carefully took your wedding dress off the hanger. You were going to have to get dressed and do your hair. You were going to have to get dressed yourself, but you had a stylist coming to do your hair. You were going to have to get dressed and do your hair and makeup. You were going to have to get dressed and do your hair, but you had a stylist for your makeup. You were going to have... Das verwirrt mich jetzt gerade. So, you were going to have to get dressed, but you had a stylist for your hair and makeup. So, ja, das. Sorry, das war mir jetzt gerade zu viel Option. It wasn't going to be much longer until they were supposed to arrive. You had to make sure you stayed on task. You needed to be ready on time. Aber so ganz im Ernst, ich glaube, ich würde mich selbst schminken. Ich wurde einmal geschminkt für die Hochzeit meiner Schwester und das hat mir gar nicht gefallen, wirklich. Ne? Also das hat sich alles sofort abgesetzt und das war viel zu viel für mein Gesicht. Ich brauchte das viel natürlicher, so sachte und wie es nur geht. Ne? Also die hat mir wirklich Full-Face-Make-up gemacht, ne? Mit so komplett Foundation und so. Und Chat, ich habe nichts auf meinem Gesicht drauf gerade, ne? Also ich glaube nicht, dass ich Foundation brauche. Also, und ich bin auch wirklich froh drum, dass ich mich so gut um meine Haut kümmere. Okay, das bisschen, was man da hier vielleicht sieht, so, mein Gott, das sind Texturen. Jedes Gesicht hat Textur. You had to make sure you stayed on task. You needed to be ready on time. During the flurry of preparation, the stylist arrived. You used the landline to call down to the lobby so the stylist could get permission to come up and join you in the room. You got yourself tucked, zipped, and buttoned into your relaxed dress when a series of rapid but not especially loud knocks struck the door. Only a few people could come to the room without approval, and the sound was not Cove. There wasn't any of his usual notable pauses between knocks. That left one other main option you thought as you went over to answer the door. Ist das unsere Schwester? Ist das die gute Elizabeth? Ich meine, Baxter, über dich freue ich mich auch, okay? Über dich freue ich mich auch, aber es wäre schön, wenn unsere Schwester uns an dem Morgen begleitet hätte. So Maid of Honor, ne? Das wäre schon cool. There on the other side was your partner in his wedding journey, Baxter. His outfit looked as though he'd reverted back to his teenage self. It was all black. But you were aware that staff would be dressed top to bottom in dark shades to be recognizable to the guests as employees and not as possible long-lost cousins twice removed. Hello and a very good morning to you. Hi, good morning. You look incredible already, but don't fret. I won't interrupt the process for long.
How are you?
How are you? I'm here to check in. Is there anything you need? Everything's good here. Do you have a way to slow down time? You wouldn't happen to have a Cove on you somewhere? I've got it under control. You shook your head. Everything's good here. The curve of his smile pulled ever so slightly higher. Wonderful, wonderful. Though, let me add, I also came in order to keep you informed on the wedding status. Oh? A worried bend came through in your tone.
Yes.
Yes, the status is, it's ready when you are. It should go off without a hitch. That was music to your ears. You were so grateful Baxter had gone to as much effort as he had for this. With absolute earnestness, Baxter wished you well.
Take care.
Take care, Jenny. I'll let you return to your preparation now. Bye, thanks for coming. The frantic mood of wedding work swept back in with no further distractions. You cleaned up your nails, you painted your nails, the stylist did your nails. Let them do this all. Let them do this all. Your nails were short, your nails were long. Short. For the paint, you went with a solid color, a pastel color, French tips with a solid color, French tips with a pastel color. That was specifically purple, blue, green, red, pink, orange, yellow. Ist jetzt French, ne? Das heißt nur die Tipps. Warum nicht weiß? Classic French, hallo? Okay, ein bisschen Lieblingsfarbe muss dabei sein, okay? You placed yourself in front of the mirror and the stylist got to work on your hair and makeup. There was a time investment, however, the look did eventually come together. The clothes, your hair and makeup was all set to what had been planned for the day. You glanced down at yourself fully dressed to get married. You did a happy twirl, you grinned satisfied with yourself, you swallowed hard, you wiped your brows relieved, you released a steadying breath, you suddenly felt lightheaded. So, hui. Nein. Ich glaube, wir würden so, zufrieden grinsen. And then the moment had arrived. Your body felt hot under your expertly tailored clothes. You couldn't hesitate any longer. Your wedding was about to begin and Kov would be there when you arrived. You took a deep, steadying breath and stepped out into the hallway. Rapidly, you made your way to the elevator and took it down to the lobby floor. It didn't take you very long to weave across the hotel lobby and exit through the front doors outside. Exit through the front doors. Outside, you immediately spotted the rental car that was sent to bring you to the beach. Ach stimmt, ja, wir heiraten am Strand. Closing your eyes, you tried to get comfortable during the drive, but it was in vain. This car was bringing you to your own wedding. Glancing out the window, your eyebrows raised in surprise because you recognized just how far you were from the beach. It would only be a few more minutes until everything you'd been working towards would finally come to fruition. Your nerves hadn't dampened at all. You were beginning to settle down. Your nervousness were replaced with a building excitement. All your nerves were gone and you were filled with pure happiness. Nothing felt real at all. Your nerves hadn't dampened at all. Ich glaube erst, wenn es vorbei ist. A small strangled chirp startled you. Slowly, it dawned on you that the noise somehow came from your throat. Baxter wasn't kidding earlier when he said that the hotel was near the ceremony. The trip was already over and there wasn't another second to spare. Carefully, you exited the car, went forward and finally took in the first sight of your ceremony. Nelle, guten Morgen, wie geht's dir? Oh, guckt euch das mal an. Ich muss davon erstmal hier. So. Foto machen. So. The shore and the sea, the backdrop of your childhood. Wherever you went growing up, the beach was rarely far away. Warm rays of the sun drifted down on you as salt-tinged gusts of winds came out from over the ocean. It was invigorating. A white wooden arch had been set right at the edge of the tide with an aisle laid over the sand leading to it. Striking white flowers were scattered on the path and along the sides. Everything was aglow. Even the grains of sand seemed to sparkle more than usual. Jenny. Your planner had immediately been informed of your arrival and came to greet you right on schedule. Also, ich muss schon sagen, so Wedding Planner zu sein, ist, glaube ich, auch irgendwie cool. Das ist auch irgendwie cool. heute müde und etwas Rückenschmerzen habe, mich heute Nacht verlegen. Oh no. Versuch es mal mit einem Wärmekissen. Aber gute Besserung.
Good afternoon.
How good to see you again, and so soon after the last time. He tilted his head in your direction casually while chuckling. Your attempt to laugh along with him came out more like strangled hiccups. Your nerves still had a complete chokehold on you. Luckily, Baxter understood completely and offered a reassuring smile. Then all presence of casualness for the day left Baxter's poise. A bright fire lit up his dark eyes.
Now,
It's showtime. Let's get into our proper positions. Das muss ich mir merken. Das muss ich mir merken. Ja. Ups. So. Whoops.
now,
It's showtime. Let's get into our proper positions. Genau. Guests are already being directed to open chairs in the audience area.
does that sound all right?
And Jenny, please go back further with me so you can be ready for the aisle walk. I'll send Cove over next. On the promise of being reunited with Cove, you let yourself be led away by Baxter. You only had to hold on a little longer than you'd get to see him. You went back down the bend, and there was an eager hastiness to your pace. A corner was turned, separating you off from the main scene. Good luck, Jenny. I'll congratulate you when it's over. Baxter trusted you enough to handle the rest and waved coyly over his shoulder as he left. He had to handle more of the arrangements behind the scenes so that you and Cove could have your spotlights. You stood there alone, foot tapping, resisting the urge to pace. You'd never been more grateful for how quickly Baxter worked when only a minute later you heard someone approach. At long last, what you'd been anticipating came to be. You saw him again. Oh my God! Chat. Der ist schon... Ach, er sieht nicht nur aus wie Sahne. Guckt mal, er ist sogar in weiß. Er ist Sahne. Oh, das brauche ich. Das brauche ich. Cove Holden. The last name rung especially strongly in your mind because soon it would be yours too. Without a word, Cove lifted his arm for you to take. His blue eyes were crystal clear. You could see your future together sparkling within them. Seeing him like that, completely ready to marry you, was breathtaking. You wrapped your arm with his gleefully, creating a secure link. The touch coaxed one of his precious wobbly smiles onto his face, though he still couldn't say a full word. An assistant joined in, only briefly to hand you the delicately crafted white poppy and eucalyptus bouquet you had designed with Cove. You gratefully accepted it, taking hold of the base with your free hand and gripping tight. The assistant made their exit while you tried to relax by breathing in the gentle perfume of the bouquet. It was sweet and beautiful, reminding you of Cove. You peeked at him from behind the petals. He was watching you too. Ich bin selbst jetzt auch nervös, Chat. While waiting in the wings, footsteps, the distant chatter of a crowd, the heavy breathing of your partner, and your own heartbeat pattered in your ears. Your eyes closed as you strained to hear the cue above the rest of the noise. But there was no need. You knew the moment had arrived when everything in the distance went silent. It even felt as though your heart froze in place, not wanting to be the one thing to interrupt. The first note was struck. Cove's hold on you tightened into a trembling squeeze. And that was all you needed to move forward. You began to walk forward with the love of your life. He was right there by your side. His legs were shaking too, and from the corner of your eyes you could see his cheeks were wet with heavy tears. Oh, baby, you'd never been brighter. You were an absolute sobbing mess of emotions. You smiled softly with tears gathering in the corners of your eyes. You were stone stiff from nerves. You were unsteady on your feet, afraid you might faint before even Cove had the chance. You had to resist the urge to drag him down the aisle to get to the end already. You were an absolute sobbing mess of emotions. Ey, Chat, ich heul echt nicht gerne vor anderen, ne? Aber ich bin ganz ehrlich, ich konnte schon bei meiner Schwester kaum die Tränen unterdrücken, ne? Wenn ich selbst heiraten würde, ciao Kakao. Ich bräuchte eigentlich meine Stylistin den ganzen Tag bei mir. You watched as his mouth opened, then closed as if he was speaking to you. Though if he was saying actual words, they were too quiet for you to hear. The crowd was full of joy, smiles, and loving glances, but no one made a move to distract you or Cove away from each other. You wouldn't have noticed if they had tried. All you were aware of in the entire world was the wonderful man holding desperately onto your arm. And how, on one of your shared strides, his knee locked and Cove stumbled. Oh no. Oh, it's okay. You rooted yourself in place, pulling up against Cove to keep him from falling completely. He leaned into you and you both swayed to the side, but he stayed on his feet. The two of you straightened yourselves out and kept going. You were equally committed to reaching the end of the aisle. It may not have been graceful, but to you it was beautiful. And you made it. When you arrived, you loosened your hold on one another to change positions. You stood in front of him face to face. Softly, Cove's lips parted again, and finally, that time you knew what it was. Your name. Jenny. Kommt gleich wieder.
Jenny.
Jenny. He lifted one hand to wipe tears from the crinkle of your eye. Aww. He brought his head lower to be closer to yours, still caressing your face even after those tears were gone. Your tears were soothed to stop. Brand new tears of joy fell. Your tears were soothed to stop, and you pressed your forehead against his. Brand new tears of joy fell, and you pressed your forehead against his. Ich glaube, die würden stoppen, aber ich finde das mit dem Forehead so süß. The delicate way he held you brought so much comfort you were able to feel more in control of your emotions. Ja, das ist eine gute Entscheidung gewesen. Full of love and gratefulness, you nuzzled against the one person who impacted you in such a way. A hush came over the crowd as the certified figure began to speak. It was time. The ceremony speech flowed over you. You listened to each word, but sentences faded out of focus the second they had passed. It was like having a dream. Thoughts and feelings in your own mind held far more weight than anything outside of it. What did break through to you were Cope's bashful gestures, shuffling feet, quivering eyes, a palatable, nervous energy that was barely swallowed down. Not one single movement went by unnoticed. Before you could completely lose yourself in Cove's gaze, your attention crystallized in an instant. The certified figure had said, "Vows." It struck Cove as well because his knees visibly locked from underneath him. In slow motion, he began to tip backwards. You instinctually grabbed onto his wrists, pulling on his sleeves in an attempt to keep your beloved from leaning further. Cove regained control of his legs and caught himself by anchoring back on the ball of his right foot. He kept that firmly planted. He was still so absorbed in the moment that the notion to be embarrassed by his near faint didn't take up any space in his mind. It was as if it hadn't happened, at least for Cove. The certified figure, however, lifted a brow, assessing if your groom was physically capable of completing the ceremony. For all his trembling, Cove stood stiffly, a pillar that could not be moved. It was enough to appease your certified figure into continuing. The couple has chosen to prepare their own vows and they will share them now. Cove Holden, please begin. He took in a long breath through his nose. After so much build up to the wedding and all the effort that it took to create it, this was the final hurdle for him, articulating his deepest feelings about you out loud. Cove looked into your brown eyes, searching for the words he needed. You waited, impressing as much encouragement as he could into your gaze. Finally, Cove began his vows.
Jenny.
Oh, ich kann das nicht. Okay, schaffe ich. Wir schaffen das. Jenny, we met when we were 8 years old. I had just moved to Sunset Bird with my dad. I saw you the first day I was there, and you had changed everything in my life. Every far-off image playing out in his mind brought further joy to Cove's features. He laughed nostalgically. You didn't let me get away with being selfish when I would act out. You were there for me when I was actually upset.
Thank you.
I got to have a childhood thanks to you. You didn't let me lose it all because I was sad. I had someone I could make those memories I cherish with. Making sandcastles, watching the clouds, catching fireflies, and everything else.
I'm so glad.
I'm still amazed how we kind of got together when we were just 13. Oopsie. He tugged at his collar while bouncing on his feet, the exact picture of a giddy schoolboy. We kissed and it was wonderful. You're süß. But even still, when puberty happened, so many things seemed harder than before. At least you and me had really become friends by then. It definitely helped me survive it all. Especially my, in hindsight, painfully obvious crush on you. That felt unbearable to me and unbearable, sorry. And I bet it was probably frustrating to everyone who was watching too. I could barely manage sitting next to you on a bed and sharing a smoothie with you. Der Smoothie! Der Smoothie, Leute, der Smoothie. Thank God that whole nightmare didn't screw things up for me. Süß. Genuine relief came out from Cove in a sigh. But I don't know how I was supposed to act normal when you'd look at me so nicely with such beautiful eyes. He began to get taken into them as he spoke it, his own eyes growing hazy and his smile wobbling. Cove shook his head to force himself out of the self-inflicted trance. That was the time I started sneaking out to visit you through the window. Whoopsie. I wanted to be with you when I was happy or when something was wrong. I couldn't stay away. Lucky for me, you didn't mind spending your days or nights in my company. Sag das nicht zu laut, Kopf. Unsere Eltern sind da. With a light touch of wistfulness, Cove recalled experience after experience from those years. Going on trips together, big ones and small ones, just hanging around your houses and the neighborhood, talking about who we were as people. And that time there was a sun shower. We'd stick together during parties and you could even make it fun for someone as socially awkward as I am. As he continued to reminisce, he chuckled adorably.
Well...
And I started getting closer with your family too. Well, at least your mom's. Elizabeth wasn't exactly interested in being good friends when we were teens. I appreciate that you always put up with my parents and their wild plans, by the way. Cove ran a hand down his face tiredly, though the amused smile on his face wasn't wiped away. And speaking of wild plans, I sure got upset when you told me about how my dad offered you $20 to be friends when we were kids, huh?
That's...
I feel bad now that I yelled at him. He wasn't trying to make things worse. It just meant a lot to me that the relationship between us was our own. I hated thinking about all the things outside of my control, all the ways the world was bigger than I knew. But I'm glad that I had the chance to talk to him about it in the end, and that we got to talk about it too. Thanks for being honest about it.
I remember.
I can still remember how badly I wanted to be grown up as an awkward tween. Then suddenly we graduated high school and it really was time to be an adult. Getting my first job, taking my first long drive without parents, accepting how small our little town was in the grand scheme of things. just trying to figure out what I was even going to do with my life. I was lost, and all I wanted was to make sure I didn't lose what mattered when things had to change. Most of all, you. You were my special someone. That was when I had fallen in love with you. No. Ich kann das nicht mit meinem Herz, ne? Also ich habe gerade richtig Puls. You were the first person I was able to open up to about my sexuality when I finally knew for sure what that was. And you were the one who would tell me when I was wrong. His speech of all that he treasured about you went on and on in an uninterrupted stream. He couldn't stop himself. I could talk to you about anything, like the accident when I got my scar. I knew you would understand. And as mundane and drudging adult stuff could be, I had a source of relief from it because you had been around. You let me have tastes of your food, and you always gave the best gifts. You love me even though I'm not a cool merman who could take you on a magical adventure.
Thanks for waiting for me.
And you lived with how long it took for me to be able to do anything romantic. I was feeling a lot and didn't do great at managing it, but I was so clingy too. I never wanted to be apart then. I think I'm a little more of a big boy about it now, maybe. He at long last stopped to breathe before his emotion-driven attempt to convey himself continued in full force. You make me happy in ways no one else ever could. Aww. And, well, a lot has happened, huh? We're definitely adults. We're at our own wedding.
It's okay.
We made it through it all the months and months growing up and through making this day happen. Though with how nervous I was, I think I might have worried the planner that I would convince you to elope just to get away from it all. But you took the pressure in stride. I love that you're so reassuring. You're such a charming human being. It was the happiest moment of my life when you accepted my proposal until now anyway. I couldn't believe you wanted to be with me as much as I wanted to be with you. I don't want to try to imagine how many tears you've wiped away from me in all these years. You helped me have the confidence to grow into a man, and you can still make me feel like a kid again. With you, nothing ever really ends, it just begins again in a new way. And basically, what I'm trying to say is no matter how hard I try, I can never thank you enough for being mine and letting me be yours. Toph wept heavily, no longer able to stay above the wave of emotions that opening himself up so fully had wrought.
I love you.
I love you so much, Jenny, and he futilely wiped a sleeve against his eyes. Every tear the fabric caught was immediately replaced. Those are my vows. I don't know how you're supposed to end them. I hope you'll marry me. You were so touched by his words, you couldn't stand how sweet he was. You giggled at the way he closed it out. It was just like him. You struggled to keep your own feelings in check. You were absolutely stunned by Cove's vows. You were so touched by his words, and you squinted your eyes, and your eyes were glossy, and you shed a tear, and you were crying too. You were bawling. Raus. Alles muss raus. Thank you, Cove, Jenny. You may say yours. Ja, wie denn? The certified figure had all but disappeared from your mind. All that you had been aware of was Cove, but that request couldn't be ignored. Now you would have to take on the endeavor of explaining everything Cove was to you and everything he'd been to you throughout knowing him almost your entire life. You choose to say, I want to thank you. I promise I adore Cove. All I want is to tell who you are to me. Wir wollen erstmal die Vergangenheit wertschätzen. I want to thank you for really getting to know me, for helping me feel comfortable in my body, for sharing your parents, for being brave for me when I was scared, for remembering things about me, even stuff that wouldn't matter to anyone else, for being there for me when I found out about my biological parents, for teaching me how to surf, for giving me so many piggy ride backs. For really getting to know me. And for loving me. For me. For helping me feel comfortable in my body, for showing for being brave for me when I was scared. You're my hero. For remembering things about me, even stuff that wouldn't matter to anyone else. It matters a lot to me. For being... For sharing your parents, das hört sich irgendwie so. For being there for me when I found out about my biological parents. That was important, and I'll never forget your support then. For helping me feel comfortable in my body, you've always been able to reassure me about that. For sharing... for sharing your parents. They are a real perk of being with you. For giving me so many piggyback rides. The Cove Express is the best form of transportation. And beside that, I promise to never stop trying to make you happy. To cherish everything you've given me. Wir machen das jetzt einmal. Achso, das kann ich jetzt runterrattern. Okay. To comfort you when your anxieties make you... To comfort you when your anxieties make you scared. To still love you, even as we both continue to grow and change. To wait as long as you need for everything. To wipe your tears when they fall. Oh, das ist eine sehr schöne Formulierung. Ich fange gleich selbst an zu weinen. Oh, Chat, ey. To get you a house directly on the beach someday. To wear an anklet on request whenever you want to go along with your spontaneous dawn adventures. To wear an anklet on request whenever you want. To get you a house directly on the beach someday. And to never stop trying to make you happy. And along with that, I adore your laugh and your smile. How you rub your arm when you're nervous. How easy you are to fluster. How excited you... How clingy you are. The way you're somehow always a bit of a mess. The awkward way you try flirting. That you're so open with your emotions. That you've been such a beach bum ever since you were born. That adorable way you text. That you're such a troublemaker. And you simply in general. Alter, wie unschön gerade Müllabfuhr ist draußen. So, how clingy you are, and you simply in general. Aww. Cove's blush had crept all the way to his neck after you let yourself get carried away, listing every little detail about him that charmed you. You're my beloved crybaby. You're a wonderful man. You're my precious ocean boy. You're my sunshine. You're my soulmate. You're my cove. And I know we were meant to be together, and you're the one I love for the rest of my life, and I'll be there for you no matter what. And I'm the luckiest person in the world that I get to say that. And you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and you were too emotional to say anything else. And I'm the luckiest person in the world that I get to say that. Oh my god. Cove covered his face with trembling hands. He was laughing, crying, and all around about to pass out again. Your certified figure nodded contently, accepting those vows as your sworn oath to your very nearly husband. Cove Holden, do you take Jenny Curter to be your lawful wedded wife? He let his hands fall, ready to face you directly. Cove's shaking, dripping, wet eyes stays locked to yours, And in the adorable cracking squeak you knew so well, he answered,
I do.
I do. It was absolutely heart-stopping, but your turn to respond had come. And do you, Jenny Coulter, take Cove Holden to be your lawful wedded husband? I do. No, I do. Cove's smile was radiant and his tears were constant. You'd sincerely made him happier than anything ever had. And then the ring bearers stepped forward. They each had out a small box that contained a wedding band. Cove's hands shook as he reached for the tiny treasure chest. With a focused furrow to his brow, he accepted the platinum ring. You gladly offered your hand to Cove. He cradled it gently in of his own. For a few seconds, all he could do was stare at your skin. Cove was so still for a moment, but then he used his free hand to bring the band toward your fingertip. He carefully slid the ring to its proper place on your finger. Das ist doch mehr als süß. Das ist zu viel Süßigkeit. Geh zu guten Morgen, wie geht's dir? Your gaze locked onto it, utterly amazed. Swallowing thickly, Cove raised his hand out for you. You held it in return and brushed your thumb across his palm. It was your turn. With that, you retrieved the matching ring from its box. It slid onto Cove's finger beautifully. He gasped under his breath, fixating on the ring. You tenderly squeezed his hand and Cove finally met your eyes again. He held your gaze with an electrifying stare. You were in awe of the whole moment. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of California, I pronounce you husband and wife. You can now kiss. Ich kann das nicht mehr, ich bin gerade so... Cove's knees may have started knocking together once more, but his gaze was nothing but eager. You reached for each other in a loving kiss. You kissed Cove on the cheek. Cove kissed you on the forehead. You threw yourself into Cove's arms to kiss passionately. Also, ich bin generell, ne? Ich weiß nicht, was das ist, aber ich finde, so ein Kuss auf die Stirn ist so verdammt süß. Ne? Also, ich weiß auch nicht. Ich finde das so toll. Das hat irgendwie ein ganz anderes Gefühl, wenn man so einen Kuss auf die Wange drückt oder so ganz sporadischer Knutscher oder so. Irgendwie ist das voll süß, aber ganz im Ernst. Ich glaube, wir würden einfach so einmal drauf. Waiting even a second longer was impossible. You sprang forward like a shot and tangled yourself around him. Your husband stumbled, but was able to keep proper hold of you, as you knew he would. Your lips connected with Cove's in an urgent expression of your love for him. He returned the kiss just as needily. Oh, die sind so süß, ich kann das nicht. You used a thumb to carefully push away the tears still clinging to his eyelashes. The beautiful flowers of your bouquet tickled against your skin as Cove's body pressed it up against you. After your faces shifted away just a hair's breadth so you could see one another fully, his expression was wholly adoring and you could still feel his warmth lingering. The crowd erupted with cheers and applause around you. Giddy, you ducked your head towards Cove's shoulder and laughed. Kann das nie mehr. All around you, confetti rained down like delicate flower petals. Your smile widened, watching your friends and family excitedly throw into the air in celebration. Peeking over at Cove, you realized that he was barely paying any attention to the jubilance around you both. Instead, his gaze was solely fixated on you. He gently took your hand. He linked his arm around yours. He walked by your side. He scooped you into his arms. Ja, Mann. The corner of his mouth pulled into a bent smile, and then Cove swept you off your feet. You giggled while he secured his hold on you. Beaming, you loosely wrapped your arms around his neck. His skin reddened, and you took the opportunity to rest a hand on his cheek and plant a kiss on the other one. You went down the aisle gleefully. As you passed by your friends and family, you caught several thumbs up, proud nods, and cheery waves. Some were even still clapping. Sniffling, your vision threatened to fill with tears after witnessing more than a handful of people dabbing their eyes with tissues. When you briefly came close enough to Mr. Holden, he patted Cove on the shoulder. Despite his weepy expression, you could tell that he had the greatest pride for his son. You waved at everyone, you blew kisses to the crowd, you shyly covered your face, thank you, you kissed Cove on the cheek, you smiled. Your cheeks hurt so much that you honestly wouldn't be surprised if your face was stuck permanently this way. And it'd be worth it, because so far today was better than you ever could have imagined. After leaving the ceremony in late afternoon, it was time for wedding photos. You and Cove met up with the photographer, while the other guests headed over to the reception spot. The excursion was filled with fun and laughter while the photographers set out to get the ideal shots. Cove lovingly held your face, not afraid to show his affection in front of the camera for a change. His thumb brushed lightly across your cheek, and then he pressed his forehead to yours. His breath was warm on your skin, and you closed your eyes shut to relish his love. When he pulled away, you were speechless, but you also had a feeling that was going to be one of the best shots of the lot. When the sun began to set about an hour later, you knew it was time to rejoin with everyone else, and so you eagerly got back into the car again to finally see the second location. Oh, wow. You and Cove took a turn down the main path. There, your friends and family were patiently waiting for this moment. The room filled with familiar cheers, whistles, and applause at your arrival. As the noise lessened, you began to hear various calls of congrats and welcome backs. The love emanating from your friends and family was palpable. Baxter made his way to the center of the area and began to gesture people back. The rest of the staff followed his lead and made space in the crowd. When the path ahead cleared out, you took a deep breath. It was time. The beginning note of your first dance song played. You heard a few of the guests speak in hushed tones, anticipation rising as the melody kicked in. It was slow-paced, it was moderately paced, it was fast-paced. It was slow-paced. Cove met your eyes as ready as he could be, and you took his hands. You heard the high-pitched whine of a microphone and saw Baxter smiling. And now the couple will have their first dance. While your legs were shaking from all the acute emotions still lingering from the ceremony, your joy from getting to dance with your husband gave you the strength to make your way to the dance floor. Cove did his best to remember the motions that were meant to go with the rhythm of the track. His long, deliberate steps were very careful not to land anywhere near your toes. Your dance lessons were worth it. You managed everything in the dance. Your dance lessons were worth it. You performed beautifully and mentally said thank you to Baxter for the dance lessons. Because of that work, your dancing was perfect. With Cove's hands in yours, you both made your mark on the dance floor and gave the crowd a show. The two of you gallivanted across the floor, hearts pounding and expressions bright. Eventually, Cove was able to get in the flow. His body relaxed and you could see the confidence slowly ease into him. Softly, he took a moment to speak to you. This is the first moment of ourselves since even before the wedding. Cove clearly was grateful for the chance to finally talk to you. Sorry, ich brauch grad trinken. Ich hab mich voll verschluckt. Ich wollte gerade noch etwas nachschauen. So. So, okay. Ich hab doch gerade getrunken. Ich hab doch gerade getrunken. Aber danke für die Erinnerung. So, you're beautiful. No one is more lovely than you. He truly looked divine in his suit. Ja, aber wirklich. Cove flushed a light rosy pink and beamed at you. This makes me think of that night of the summer soiree. You continued to sway with your husband. And this makes me think of that night of the summer soiree. Cove let out a stuttering laugh. His face went through a roller coaster of emotions before settling on amused. I hope that I'm at least a better dancer now than I was then, but...
Me too.
Honestly, I was thinking about that too. I remember exactly how it felt dancing with you years ago. I had a lot of hopes then. I wanted it to last forever, but I also desperately wanted to skip ahead so that I know what things would be like for us in the future. And now actually we're here, we made it. Cove sighed dreamily as he looked into your eyes. Thank God the ceremony is over and we can just be married now. Gott, hab ich mich erschreckt. Not that the wedding is bad. He winced as soon as he realized how his words sounded. He shook his head. I just kept thinking that I'd ruined something or something terrible would happen. At this point, a truck full of apples could come through and destroy dinner and I wouldn't care. I felt the same way. I'm touched that you wouldn't get depressed over missing out on a meal. Please know you're so adorable. Now that would be something to remember. You shook your head affectionately. Your silly husband, he was cute. Then the music reached a bridge of the song with complex choreography. Both of you had to focus more on the dance. That stopped your conversation in its tracks. The two of you became absorbed into dancing once more as the song's end grew closer and closer. The final note was struck and the dance ended in a spinning flourish. The dance ended with you dipping Cove. The dance ended with Cove dipping you. The dance ended with you both landing the final step. The dance ended with a bit of stumbling, but you kept each other up. Was heißt dipping you? Ah. Okay, habe ich mir schon gedacht. Okay, the dance ended with Cove dipping you. Cove's dip was slightly awkward due to the height difference between you two. He had to arc his back to get you down lower than you already were compared to him. So, okay. He made it work though. Cove's lips brushed over your ear. You're a really good partner. Your face felt hot and it wasn't only from the dancing. You heard a clap that steadily transformed into wild applause. Turning to face the crowd, you looked over your friends and family cheering. You bowed, you curtsied, you did your own mini celebration dance to mark your success. You wiped your brow. Your shyness reared its head and you had to look away. You grinned at all the encouraging faces. It was nice to see that everyone had enjoyed the show. Cove smiled back at you, his happiness plain for you to see. Cove continued to watch you rather than switching his attention to the guests. He twisted his wedding band bashfully around his finger. With the first dance done, you both left the open floor to join the others and properly greet your seated guests. Cove offered you his arm to take once more. You took hold of his arm. You offered Cove your arm instead. You took his hand instead. You gestured that you were fine. You took hold of his arm. Your arm wrapped around his, fitting as snugly together as matching pieces of a puzzle. Punkt. It was a hold that could not easily be broken. Physically and legally linked to the other, you and Cove went forward as one. After only a few strides, you'd arrived at the nearest table in the arrangement. It had close family all the way around, including your mom and ma. The two had scooted their chairs closer and were eagerly whispering to one another, trading words of excitement back and forth. Feeling awkward about having to interrupt, though realizing there's no reason to feel that way, Cove cleared his throat to announce your and his presence.
Hey,
Hi. Oh. Snapping out of their private fervor, your parents turned the enthusiasm straight towards the two of you. Hello. You waved at them. You went between them to give the two a hug from behind. You reached over the table to take their hands. Wir wollen huggen hier. The two leaned into your shoulders, returning the embrace. After keeping hold long enough to be warmed up by their shared body heat, you let go in order to stand up straight.
Hello.
Kiddos, it's great to finally get to talk to you today. Ma folded her hands together on the tabletop daintily and followed Mom with your own greeting. Congratulations to you both. It's so good to see you today. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Of course. The ceremony was a memorable one. Those vows, huh? You also nailed the theming with that venue. It was truly unforgettable. And having the reception here is perfect. All the effort paid off then. Hearing people actually discuss the wedding as a real event, Cove became tongue-tied. Your ma watched over the both of you with a gaze doting as it was knowing.
Have fun.
Have fun greeting everyone else. We'll be here if you need us. Lani's right. We can entertain ourselves while you're busy with your big day. I love you, moms. Thank you so much. You're the best parents anyone could have. I appreciate everything. You're lucky you have such lovely children. You nodded shyly. No, and then she said to ask my moms. Thanks again, moms. Ma's fingers squeezed together even more tightly as a visual representation of the restraint she was exerting not to cheer inappropriately loudly. While Ma attempted to not spook Cove after his tepid attempt to use the new title, Mom had no qualms saying something embarrassing. Woohoo! We got upgraded. It's about time. Pam. Cove's gaze immediately dropped to his feet and his near-constant flush from the day reappeared. You gave your husband a reassuring pat on the arm, proud and pleased at his braveness. Okay, bye. Cove scuttled off, needing an escape, and you gave your parents a wave as you stuck by him. Goodbye. Joko, guten Morgen. Freut mich, dass du gut geschlafen hast. Mir geht's auch gut. Nille, ich sag dazu dann später nochmal was. Oder in der Gruppe oder so. Good luck out there. Your and Cove's moms took their glasses of wine in hand and clinked them together celebratorily. To Jenny and Cove. To Jenny and Cove. As matching images of each other, they slipped the drink in good cheer. Located at the same table were Cove's parents. They were taking it easy until Cliff noticed you and Cove had eyes on him. His grin ramped up to 1,000 watts.
Hey!
Hey! It's our local celebrities of the day. The wedding's been going so smoothly, your planner's a real pro. Though if there's anything an average guy like me can do for things, just give me a shout. Cove brightened in a similar way. His tone was full of affection for his father. Oops. Hi, Dad, and thanks. Hi. He clapped his back happily. You walked around the table to give him a hug. You held out a thumbs up. You smiled shyly. Hug, hallo, wir sind affectionate, huggenate, hug it. It was tricky to weave through the space, but you were able to get in arm's reach of Cliff. He opened up his arms, waited for you, and then squeezed you back. Soon you had to get out from behind chairs and other guests, so you let Cliff go and nudged your way over to Cove again. Cliff slyly winked, waving you and Cove off.
Right.
I don't have to hug you. Everyone wants to see you. Okay, see you later. Bye, Dad. A loud gasp escaped Cliff. You glanced over at Cove for his reaction. He grinned sweetly with misted eyes, agreeing wholeheartedly with your statement. Now all that was needed was to see if you'd get Cliff's own acceptance. You didn't have to wait long for it. Overwhelmed with emotion, his voice squeaked at first, but he barely noticed. He was beaming with joy. Of course! I don't know how I ended with 2 kids as good as you. Cliff surveyed his 2 children proudly with his chest puffed out. I have to say, well, actually, I'll say it a little later. You'll have to wait for my big speech. Oh, here it comes. Get ready, Jenny.
Come on.
Come on, Spot. It's gonna be great. Now go on. I love you. You're an amazing dad. Thank you for being here all these years. You smiled warmly. Then finally you rounded the table's edge and reached the side where Kira sat. She was patiently sipping at a steaming cup of coffee, placing it down when she noted it was time for the meet and greet with the 2 of you.
Hey.
Hey, Mom. Die sieht wieder mal einfach nur tippitoppi aus, ne? Hello, babies. You leaned over to give her a hug. Wir huggen einfach jeden. It took some stretching, but you were able to gain enough access to Kira's space in order to give her a solid hug. She put her arms around your shoulders gladly. You shared that affectionate touch for a moment and then shifted yourself back up. Thanks for coming. It's really nice to see you. It's fantastic to be here. This has been wonderful. Also, that was a marvelous dance. Such an incredible way to make an entrance. Cove kicked the tip of his shiny shoes and at nothing in particular, and his shoulders shifted from side to side shyly. Cove was forever incapable of seeming like a full-grown man in front of his mom. Kira's brows bent as she looked on at him adoringly. But then she shut her eyes and brought out more energy.
See you soon.
I'll see the 2 of you again soon. You should go explore the rest of your exquisite reception. Oh, alright, we probably should do that. Bye. Bye, Mom. She froze for a split second. Her hand flew to her mouth as her gaze landed back on you. Slowly, she lowered it, revealing the widest smile you'd ever seen on her face. In her gentlest tone, Kira cowed. Goodbye, baby. Oh. Cove was positively melting from happiness seeing you and your shared mom speak to one another that way. Yeah, you left it there. She gave an understanding smile. You didn't have to say anything else. Then you had to continue on to the next table in the seating arrangement. There were still guests waiting to see the both of you. You had a pleasant conversation with your aunt and uncle on Mom's side. They couldn't have been more pleased that you had found someone who made you as happy as Cove did. Right by was their daughter, your cousin, and as well as your older sister. They were throwing looks not so subtly, waiting to speak their piece, but didn't interrupt your chat with other family. Die sehen alle so gut aus. Halleluja. But when it was officially their turn, the ladies placed down glasses of juice and put on matching curved smiles. Cove shifted on his feet embarrassedly. They didn't even need to say anything. You grinned at the 2 of them. You went over to hug them around the sides. You shook your head and smacked affectionately. Hagen, Hagen, Hagen. You were able to shimmy around the furniture to get yourself behind both you, then wrapped your arms across their backs. Lee squished against you while giggling, and Liz gave a true big sibling ruffle on the top of your head. After the embrace, you slipped out from between them to head over to Cove again. The day went by so fast, it's hard to believe it's evening, and this is the first time we've been able to talk directly. Totally, it's so amazing to finally get to see you. Well, I saw you before in the ceremony, but now you're really here with us. You're both beautiful, and it was just touching and amazing and perfect. Cove laughed airily. Lee's energy levels were as high as ever. Hello to you too. You must be relieved there were no accidental drownings with those waterworks going off during the ceremony. Whoopsie. Lee couldn't suppress a snicker. Cove, on the other hand, pouted indignantly. To be serious, for a moment, you sensitive souls did very well with those vows. Thanks for all that and everything. It was nice to see you. Aw, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yes, you're welcome, and thanks for coming to see us on your wedding tour. Bye. Okay. You gave a wave farewell. With everyone at that spot properly greeted, you and your husband began to stroll along to the next one. One of the more boisterous tables had Derek, Terry, and Miranda huddled together. They were celebrating wholeheartedly. Hi, everybody. The pleasant greeting was paired with a little wave. Your friends turned in unison after realizing you were there. Then the trio of buddies lifted cups full of beer and cheers to you and Cove.
What's up?
Ich kann Derek nicht sprechen. What's up? And congratulations.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you for letting us come. Hey, congrats, you too. Hello? You grinned at the group. You went around the side of the table, giving each a hug. Wir hugging everybody. Each person waited patiently to stretch their arms to you as you came to their sides one by one. You received your 3 warm hugs and then returned to Cove's side. Cove shyly basked in the affection of his closest friend, sucking it up like a delicate sapling in the sunshine. Thanks, and thanks for coming.
Come on.
Come on, dude. I wouldn't have missed it. We had to be. Cove and Jenny are having their wedding. It's momentous. We're really enjoying the reception, and don't worry about us if you have to do important bride and groom stuff. I appreciate that. It's weird to say, but we do have important bride and groom stuff to do today. Today, we're greeting all the guests right now. We'll see you later, though.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
See you later.
Safe travels. Enjoy yourselves. Oh, you waved goodbye sweetly. Cove skipped ahead, buoyed by the brief but fun interaction, and you went right along with him. Table to table, you continued to greet each attendee of your wedding. From family who flew in from Hawaii to be there, those who lived right by your place, you appreciated everyone who took the time to come celebrate this day. There was so much love to go around. Every conversation was just as enjoyable as the last. The one person you hadn't seen during your rounds made himself known when Baxter's voice echoed out through the space, amplified by a microphone. Oops. Good evening. Thank you all for attending the wedding of Jenny and Cove Holden.
Exciting.
Exciting. We will now begin the bouquet toss. Schon? Wow. A smattering of applause and light murmurs followed the announcement. Baxter let that settle before continuing. Cove, Jenny, please come to the open area in the center. Anyone who wants to play can. You and your husband eagerly obliged to start the tradition, going over to stand alone on the cleared floor, but it wasn't for long. Lee hopped out of her seat right away, taking Liz by the arm to bring her along for the ride. Your sister wasn't as impossibly excited as your cousin, but she was intrigued. Miranda rose to her feet as well, her boyfriend pumping her up to win the whole walk over. She giggled bashfully and waved at Terry while waiting in the forming crowd. Derek decided to get in on things as well, grinning amusedly among the rest of the players. Derek, go for it! Holla! Kira looked on at the group, taking a second to consider it, but ultimately she became another member of the game. Oha! She strolled over to the collection of younger folks and called out for Cliff to join with her.
Come on.
Come on, don't be such a snore. Also ich würde es auch fühlen, wenn die beiden wieder zusammenkämen. He shook his head, sinking lower into the chair. Lee, Miranda, Kira, and Liz all began to wave and jump, encouraging Cliff. Terry spoke up from the next table over. You can do it, man!
Right.
All right. He used the edge of the table to push out his chair and stood up. The ladies cheered as Cliff strode towards the crowd. Your moms giggled, leaned closer together, and whispered amongst one another. They were eager to be audience members to the spectacle. And no one else motioned to join, so Baxter kept things moving. Thank you for grouping up in such a timely manner. We've got a wonderful crowd for this. Now keep your eyes on Jenny. She will be tossing the bouquet in only a moment. Jenny, all you need to do is look the other way and throw the bouquet to the awaiting audience. Cove can stand by. As instructed, you turned your back to the crowd. Cove took his place in front of you. His shoulders were drawn in out of a sympathetic tenseness for your task. They're definitely ready for you, Jenny. Thanks. And the room became silent as you wound up for the toss. You paused and then you gave it a solid, steady throw. You sent off your bouquet delicately. You did a tricky side shot, keeping the players on their toes. You attempted a good throw, but it awkwardly flailed over your shoulder. You tossed it as high as you could. You hurled it back as fast as you could. You tossed it as high as you could. A flurry of heeled, clattering, jewelry clinking, and lightheartedly yells burst into the space. The bouquet would land in seconds, and the crowd was vying for that prize. The clamor rapidly reached its peak volume, with nearly everyone in the crowd either gasping or cheering. The game had ended. You took a glance over your shoulder to see what the results were. And... Ich wusste es. Your big sister was handling a bouquet and tapping the end of it satisfied against her other palm. She looked at every other person in the crowd with a smirk.
Nice try.
Nice try, but I win. You were positive she didn't care about the meaning of catching a bouquet. It was purely about the victory of the catch. Your planner took to the mic again to make the results official.
Bravo.
Bravo. Stunning work by your winner, Liz. Stunning work by our winner, Liz. Ist der Einzige, der sie noch Liz nennt? Just saying. Yeah, nice catch. I'm glad somebody got it. Congratulations on your future wedding. Dang, that was not who I was aiming for. Yes, I was shooting for you. You applauded their success. There was laughter all around. Your guests were good sports. As ever, Baxter was able to manage the flow of the day on your behalf. He took the mic and addressed the assembled crowd, his clear voice resonating through every speaker. Please could everyone return to the seating area for our next event. The couple has arranged a special dance between themselves and the parents of the bride and groom. Your eyes met Cove's aquamarine ones as you instinctively glanced towards each other. Your expressions brightened before you stepped apart, ready for the event. Your moms radiated joy as they approached. They each took one of your arms and entwined it with their own. The three of you made your way over to an open spot in the dance space at the front of the reception area. Close up like this, you could see not only the pride evident in their faces, but the telltale shine of teary eyes. As the music began, Mom broke away to allow you and Ma to dance together first. While you flowed and swayed in time with the tune, Ma took the opportunity to speak to you. Her voice was soft and low, preventing her words from carrying outside your little bubble. It means so much to me to see you like this. All we've ever wanted for you and your sister is for you to have a good life. I hope you always be as happy as you've been today. Touched, you felt a pricking of emotion in your own eyes. Ma spun you around and handed you over to Mom. She picked up the rhythm instantly and you got into the swing of things just as you had with Ma.
You're fantastic.
You're doing great, Jenny. She squeezed your shoulder where she was holding you as you bobbed to the music. She always had been very physical in her affection, though not always conventionally so. You were somewhat relieved that she'd not chosen to pinch your nose in front of people on your wedding day. She gripped your shoulder again. You really are. You smiled back at her, lost for words. You loved both your moms so fiercely. You were overwhelmingly grateful that they could be here with you for this day. During a turn in your dance, you caught sight of Cove happily twirling around with his own parents, hand in hand, on the other side of the floor. Even glimpsed from a distance, you could make out the huge smiles on Cliff and Kira's faces. It made you giggle as you drew back towards your moms. Ma made to break away and let Ma have a turn dancing with you, but Ma snatched her hand and yours and drew you into a dance together as a group. Laughing even stronger, you danced with both of them until Ma released Mom's hand. You let Mom go with a wave and danced with Ma one-on-one. Before long, you'd swept back to dancing with Mom. Aber das ganze Reden macht einen durstig. You took turns dancing with them both individually as well as dancing as a group, changing it up often so that no one was left out in the cold for long. But eventually the song came to an end, bringing your dance to a close. Your moms enveloped you in a hug, sandwiching you from the front and back.
Wonderful.
That was such a lovely time. You really know how to put on a party. You held them back just as tightly, glancing from one to the other. Thanks, I learned it from watching you too. Cove and his parents rejoined you, their spirits as high as your little groups.
You're good.
That was wonderful, bravo. Bex's voice rang out through the speakers once more. We are now opening up the dance floor. You are all warmly invited to come up and join the family for dancing. With that announcement, the nostalgic songs got turned up, enticing people to come forward and enjoy themselves. The dance floor bustled with more and more attendees, and over in the seating area, family and friends were catching up over animated conversations. Satisfied that people were having a good time, you decided to dance with everyone, dance more with just Cove, go sit down away from the thick of it, stand by to watch the dancing, dance more with just Cove. The moment you'd been waiting for had arrived at last. Finally, you could dance with Cove without feeling the weight of countless eyes on you. There were people who cared about you all around, but you didn't feel any guilt over your choice to focus on your special someone. After all, if there was any day where your friends and family would understand you prioritizing time with him over them, it would be your wedding. You seized his hand and pulled him to the dance floor. Cove was just as excited as you and matched your pace easily. The merrymaking continued right up until it was time for dinner to be served. All the action must have helped them to work up an appetite. As the guests complied readily, they quickly filed back to their tables, ready for a delicious meal as soon as it was announced. You settled right into your seat at the head table. Cove sat up in his own chair excitedly, reaching over for the napkin-wrapped silverware in preparation. He was ready for dinner. A waitress clad in black from top to bottom came to stand across from you. She had a frosty pitcher of water in her hands. While setting that down at a spot on the tabletop between you and Cove, she spoke out in a friendly tone. Can I get you anything else to drink? Could I have some orange juice, please? Ganz im Ernst, it'd be nice to have one of our mixed cocktail options. I've got it. I'll get that right to you. You both thanked her as she spun her on her heels and made a beeline to the drink counter. At that same time, more servers began pouring into the space coming from the opposite direction. They were spreading out between the tables, collecting orders from the rest of the guests. One of the darkly dressed figures stood out from the rest of you. With perfect poise and not a hair out of place, Baxter stood on the sidelines to supervise the process. He was well into his work. Servers ebbed and flowed between the tables as drinks were provided to each individual who requested one. Und Danny, Hallöchen, wie geht's dir? That wasn't where it stopped. Soups and salads were then carted out before the main course. Kov took in a satisfied inhalation of the steam coming off the soup. You could catch a whiff of the scent yourself. It was savory and rich. He scooped a spoonful out and dug right in. The rest of the guests followed, taking first tastes of what you had to offer them. Spirited discussions were had between bites. There were plenty of compliments. Your mom, Miranda, and Liz sounded especially pleased with how it came out. They were chatting to the others at their tables about the subtle flavors. And many of your attendees made use of the extra spice that had been made available. Cliff, Kira, Ma, Terry, Derek, and your own lovely husband each added their own levels of added heat. Cove! Seit wann isst du scharf? Okay, aber wenn die ganze Familie scharf ist, dann vielleicht gehöre ich nicht zu meiner Familie. Meine Familie isst auch gerne scharf, ich nicht. For your meal, you kept it as it is. It was delicious and exactly the way you had wanted. Konnte ich auch Salz hinzufügen? Nein. It was delicious and exactly the way you had wanted. Mom's jovial tone carried itself above the rest of the voices. So, how much are we getting here? There's all this already and the meal hasn't even shown up. I'm gonna lose track keeping count. Oh, I asked. It's a 3-course meal, not counting desserts. Nice. When the bowls were polished clean, the servers began to reappear, clearing the dishes away to make room for more. The main course was ready and the guests were ready for it. You and Cove had the dish placed in front of you first. Cove shifted back and forth, even letting out an excited squeak. When the rest of the plates were brought out, you could pick out oohs and ahs about how amazing it looked and the generous portion size. You even heard mention of the swirls on the dishes by some discerning guests. Very few words were spoken as the dinner truly began. Everyone became fully immersed in their food. It was quite the hit. Guests were given the time to enjoy their meals while they were fresh before the reception events continued as you had planned. Baxter strolled up to a side counter set on the opposite end of the head table. You had a perfect view of it. Casually, he took up the microphone that he'd used throughout the rest of the event to make another announcement. Good evening. From the staff and I'd like to thank you all for being such lovely guests to serve. We hope you enjoyed your dinner.
Now,
this mic will be left open for a time to allow anyone who wishes to make a speech about the couple. You are all welcome to come share memories, words of congratulations, and or your appreciation for Jenny and Cove Holden if you feel comfortable doing so. He didn't hog the mic any longer than necessary, placing it back down on the center of the stand as soon as his brief message had been made clear. Baxter directed a soft smile down to you and Cove as he left the space open for others to speak. A nervous rhythm began to play out next to you as Cove's fingers were drummed against the edge of the table. You watched a furrow grow deeper into his brows. He was preparing himself for whatever was about to be said. There would likely be some friendly teasing, and almost certainly he was going to get emotional again. Once the mic was available, the first person to stand was your Ma. She hopped right up and made her claim to the front table. Okay. Chat, ich muss mal kurz Pipi-Pause machen, sonst mache ich mir gleich in die Hose. So, also ganz kurz, ne? Ganz kurz Pipi-Pause. Dann machen wir jetzt auch einfach weiter. Ich habe gerade eben nochmal kurz geschaut, bevor ich wieder umgeschaltet habe hier. Kann sein, dass wir tatsächlich sogar jetzt noch in einer 2-Stunden-Aufnahme bleiben. Weil irgendwie ist bei der Person, wo ich mich orientiere, so viel mehr passiert als bei mir. Aber we will see. Softly, she spoke across the space directly to you and Cove, her words being carried through the air to where you sat. Congratulations once more, my wonderful children. This wedding feels like a dream as much as my own did when I was around your age. Her head tilted to the side towards the other guests and began a formal speech. Well, our Jenny has been a joy to our family's lives and everyone else who's met her since the day we were brought together. But watching how she's grown with Cove has been special. The way Jenny treasured the little stuffed turtle keychain Cove had bought for her, even using it as her cell phone charm as soon as she got one. Cove's nervousness over attending a formal party but doing it anyway because it was with Jenny. There was the one long weekend where Cove came day after day to take Jenny on charming trips for no special reason at all. Her eyelids rested close as she let out a sentimental sigh. And I could keep going, there's so many memories. Jenny can clear the tears from his eyes better than anyone else when she wasn't the one causing them. Happy tears, of course, it was beautiful and it still is. Her tender gaze shifted to the two of you once more, signaling the end of her talk had arrived.
I love you.
I can only hope you'll be able to continue growing together for many more years to come. I love both of you very much. Your husband's eyes had already begun misting. After knowing her for all this time, Cove developed a deep affection for Ma. Hearing that she cherished those important memories the same way you and he did had an impact. She slipped the mic in its proper place, brushed at her bangs, and walked to her seat again on light steps. Your mom brushed down her dress as she stood on her feet and began to walk. This was her chance to take the stage, and she was going for it. When she put one hand on the mic, the tip of her finger tapped the top of it, doing a sound test. The puffs of sound echoed out, and your mom was satisfied with that. She lifted her head high, facing the crowd and smiling merrily.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming today and for all the gifts you brought. I don't know how we're gonna pack all that up to get it to their place, but we'll make it work. Where there's a will, there's a way. She had to lower the mic a bit, already snickering under her breath. Well, Jenny, Cove, our families went through a ride with you two being brought together. Talk about a force of nature. You took some time to feel things out, but after those rockier years, it was time to watch out. And Cliff almost had a heart attack when we all took that RV out and Cove had disappeared from his sleeping bag in the morning. And it turned out he snuck into the loft with Jenny. Oh nein, das weiß jetzt jeder. Oh no. Grinning ear to ear, lost in those old memories, she shook her head. Aber gut zu wissen, dass wir jetzt auf den Blick haben, was eigentlich passiert ist. But at the end of it all, I think you were both good influences on each other. Or at least you've made one another very happy. That's good enough in my mind. You really took that promise when you were 13 to treat Jenny well to heart, huh, Cove? Thanks. Cove smacked a hand to his cheek automatically. It didn't do anything to hide the color burning into his face. And you know, we really did need a son in there to run things out. Mom snorted and laughed at her own line. She waved that away with her free hand, wanting to be more serious. When she could master the even tone she had been aiming for, your mom finished her speech.
Love you.
I love you, kiddos. And it's true that you're hardworking adults now, but don't ever forget that your ma and I are here if you need something. Your family will always be there. She had been able to coax out some chuckles from Cove throughout. He was mostly amused over her penchant for jokes than the actual jokes themselves, but the laughter had been shaky with emotion. He really had come to love your mom. With a quite pleased grin, Mom left the mic behind to return to her spot right by her wife. Smooth as silk, Liz rose from her seat and glided across the floor to the speaker's stand. But Liz took her time before saying anything, evening out her bangs, clearing her throat, fiddling with the angle of the mic when she did take hold of it. She didn't have a care in the world. That couldn't be said for everyone. Cove tensed in apprehension of whatever she was going to say. He had to know what she was planning. Luckily for him, she did eventually begin her speech and end his suspense. As I'm sure many of you know, I'm Jenny's older sister, so one of the very few people who have been around her for longer than her husband. She was smirking already 2 sentences in. We're pretty close, is the thing. She flicked the hand without the mic into a non-committal half shrug. But honestly, Jenny, if I realized you'd be marrying that new kid back when I was 10, I might have had to disown you. A scrawny, grumpy boy who didn't even know how to play pretend, right? Certainly not, even if I did joke about it happening. Hey. Cove gasped indignantly that she would say such things, but things being said continued on regardless of his objection. And yet here we are at your wedding to that very crybaby.
Unreal.
Unbelievable. Exasperated at Liz's anger for her congratulations speech, Cove slunk lower in his seat, took his drink in both hands and sipped at the juice like a furious elementary school kid. Her head slowly shook, the ends of eyebrows bent, and a less crooked smile came to her face. The tone wasn't silly anymore. But with all that out of the way, what I actually want to say now is, you made the right choice. He's the one for you. Day after day, week after week, year after year, Cove was there. Even more than I was, a lot of the time. Don't get your hopes up about this meaning, I'm done teasing you about it, but for today I want to thank you, Cove. Those big watery eyes of yours have never lost sight of Jenny since she caught them.
Thank you.
It brings peace to my heart to know that there's another person out there who cares for her as deeply as she deserves to be. Ich fange gleich an zu weinen, Chad. Oh. You didn't have another comment then. Liz's grin widened as if she knew exactly the reactions she'd been getting. Congratulations to my good old baby sister and her special boy. Love you. With that, she tilted the mic towards the two of you, as though she was toasting a glass. At the last moment, Liz had made Cove smile, and his wide eyes were as damp as she had described. Liz daintily left the microphone where it belonged and returned to her chair, fully satisfied. There was a clattering of silverware and dishes as Lee sprung out from her table. She skipped away, not paying any mind to that. She was too impatient for the chance to talk. Somehow it reminded you of all those times you chatted over the phone, the fun and excitement of sharing what was going on, even when you weren't right next to each other. She took the mic right into her hand, projecting plenty of stage presence, standing in front of an audience. My cousin Jenny and I are the same age and got to grow up together. Because of that, I've gotten the joy of watching the story of her and her next-door neighbor, Cove. They barely tolerated each other at first, and then when romance finally happened, I was invested in the twists and turns of the tale. So let's just say I was the tiniest bit worried when neither of them had the nerve to propose. If they waited any longer, I was gonna offer to do it for Jenny just to get it over with. She giggled with as much joy as when she first found out the big news. Und hallo Red Wolf, guten Morgen. Und danke für dein Lurk, ich hoffe dir geht's gut. Thanks Co for taking care of that. This couldn't have ended better. I'm your biggest fan. But As happy as I really am about your adventures in love and marriage, the best part of me has been my own relationship with the two of you. Leandra took a moment to slow down and express her thoughts with complete honesty. Wussten wir, dass sie Leandra heißt? Ich dachte, die heißt Lee. Ich dachte, ihr Name sei einfach pur Lee. Oha, ich hoffe, das habt ihr jetzt nicht gut. Oh nein, wartet mal kurz. Okay, so, bin wieder da, I'm sorry. Ja, so. Jenny, you're among my closest family and very best friends. And Cove, you're not just my cousin's husband, you're my friend too, and my family just the same. Congrats on your stunning future together. I love both of you. Aww. Cove had to bite his lip to keep it from wobbling. The earnestness truly touched him. Her high-energy attitude quickly returned, though. Lee dropped the mic down and blew a couple kisses your way before she swished back to her seat. Derek came out from the seating area to give his own talk. He had a relaxed stance when he grabbed the mic and waved over at the head table.
Congrats.
Hey, congratulations again to you, Jenny and Cove. You found your other halves and anyone can see it. You're good for each other, you're good to each other. Whether you got married or not, no one would have questioned that commitment, though it's been a hell of an event too. The first lines of the speech were for you and Cove, but Derek then turned outwards to address the rest of the crowd. One time when we were barely teenagers, we went to the mall and there were these wine chimes that Cove was eyeballing but wouldn't stop to get, and then Jenny got him one.
Oh, man.
And Cove still has it. That's impressive. Your jaw dropped. You never realized Derek had noticed any of that. You snuck a glance at Cove and he was sending you the side-eyed look of shock. The two of you sat there, having to accept that you weren't as subtle with your affections as you assumed. Derek had been polite about it. Derek beamed with a boyish charm, looking just like he did the first time you'd met him. Thanks for being my friend. It's been a pleasure to know you too. Derek's heartful appreciation had to awkwardly be interrupted with one quick addendum. Oh, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm getting that time management thing under control. He took the chuckles from the crowd in good stride and wrapped things up for real.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me talk. Carefully, Derek hooked the microphone back into its stand. When he let go, he hovered his hand nearby for a second to catch it if it fell. When he was sure all was well, he nodded confidently and lightly jogged to his seat. Cove watched the entire exit with a smile growing larger and larger on his face. A beat passed and then Miranda stood. She gripped at the front of her flowing dress, pulling it from the ground as she walked over to the mic. Her shoulders were shyly hunched up and her head was low. If she wasn't surrounded by tables full of people watching, you might have thought she was sneaking out of bed while trying not to get caught by her parents. When Miranda finished tiptoeing to the front, she gathered up the microphone in both of her hands, her eyes closed rather than directly facing the crowd. She may not have been comfortable with public speaking, but her desire to participate outweighed that.
Hi.
Hi. Cove's focus was set ahead, but you caught out the peripherals of your own gaze that your husband mouthed a hi back to her instinctively. Thank you, Jenny and Cove, for inviting me. It's been a wonderful day, and I'm so happy for you too. The stiffness of her presentation smoothed out the more she got to talking. She was even able to giggle as her affectionate feelings for her friends eclipsed the worries of saying them in public. It's been great attending a party of yours after you two were always nice enough to come to mine. Cove laughed along with her warm, far-gone days of bounce houses, noisemakers, and pin the tail on the donkey reflected in his jubilant face. You're both amazing, and I really appreciate the support you've given me being there when I needed someone to talk to. You've had such a positive impact on my life. I'm just really lucky to be your friend, and I hope we'll always be friends. Congratulations, Jenny and Cove. Cove nodded firmly in silent agreement with her wish while scrubbing at his eyes. Miranda put down the mic with some oomph, then twirled around to return to her seat. Her steps were much lighter than before. Terry was waiting there with open arms to her give a squeeze, clearly proud of his girlfriend for doing so good. Her smile stayed bright even from a distance. Terry jumped onto his feet with a grin, strolling right over to the counter. He scooped up the mic in one hand and gestured ahead of him with the other. I met Cove and Jenny in high school. I didn't know them the longest out of everybody, but I could tell they were some cool people right away. Them and Randy were my best group of buddies back then, and we've kept that friendship train going despite all the stuff that's happened. He tapped a finger against the tabletop in time with every specific he mentioned. Graduating school, moving to different places, me and Miranda dating, the two of them getting married, and things about us not being what other people thought they were. Also, we lived through that one summer when it wasn't just the four of us. Sometimes it was the five of us, right, my pal Baxter? He brought the mic even closer to his grinning mouth for emphasis and dramatically pointed off to the side. Now we're all here again. You probably hadn't planned for that. And he was right, having been quietly discussing next steps with a server, Baxter's mouth hung open mid-word. Suddenly being brought into focus outside of his expertly late schedule knocked him completely off rhythm. Cove barked a grateful laugh, equally as shocked but far more amused. Baxter's head turned in the direction of the sound. His mouth finally closed into a wry smile. It seemed Terry brought the gift of teasing someone other than you or Cove, and it was more than a welcome offer as far as Cove was concerned, especially since it was taken in good spirits. There was something remarkable about being able to include Baxter in your group's merrymaking the same way as anyone else. Terry nodded knowingly, then casually transitioned into his main point. And I guarantee our friendship is gonna stay on track. No matter what, there's no one who could take your places. From me to you, and from you two to each other. Good work tying the knot, you catches. Terry left his speech and the mic there. He paused to applaud your union graciously before flipping his hand out into a wave as he walked off. Cove gave a big friendly wave in return. His eyes were glossy. Soon as Terry hit his chair again, Miranda took his arm and happily began whispering to him about the speech. Kira pushed herself up from her seat and went right to the front without hesitation. Eagerly, she lifted the mic to her lips and said, I can't believe my babies are having a wedding right now. The unexpected declarations and chuckles rumbling throughout the crowd. Any whoosies? Kira continued with a wink and a smile. It was a treat getting to meet Jenny in person for the first time, though I already felt like I knew her thanks to all the stories Cove loved to recount about her. In a pouting whisper, Cove spoke out about that description of events. Mom, whenever I got to visit Sunset Bird or you visited me, I came to see firsthand more and more what marvelous individuals you were growing into. You bloomed right before my eyes like perfect white poppies on the hill in your childhood neighborhood. Every moment I've been able to spend with each of you has been a gift. We had some pretty wild times over the years. I count my lucky stars that I got to be the mom to such an amazing boy. And Jenny? The buoyant tone of Kira's words faded into something softer, sweeter. I'd like to thank you personally for helping my baby make himself a home again. I'm truly grateful for that. There was a sniffing at your side after that. Cove tugged at the tablecloth in front of him, unconsciously needing to do something. Mom, congratulations, both of you. I love you. I love you too. It didn't matter that she couldn't hear, she knew. Kira used the bottom of her palm to wipe her eye, placing the mic on its stand with the other hand. She took an additional moment to look up at you and coughed gently, and then Kira strode back to her table. Cliff leaned over towards her and gave 2 thumbs up for that speech. His zealousness made Kira cover her mouth in amusement and embarrassment. And then Cliff raised from out of his seat. The most contentious figure in your husband's early life who grew to become one of his closest relationships. Cliff took large strides to reach the speaker's stand, but his fingers froze in place before they could grasp the mic. He stared down at it, collecting his thoughts or his emotions, or both. When he was ready, his hand locked around the base of it as he lifted the mic up higher and grin pulled across his face. There was a crinkle around the corner of his eye.
Hey.
Hey, Spot. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Dad. Cove's reply was barely audible. He might not have realized he'd done it. Cove's irises were shaking as he looked ahead intently. Well, Cliff's expression turned distant. He was facing the crowd, but his gaze had drifted even further away to something in the past that was long gone. I remember the first day Cove and I moved to Sunset Bird when I met Jenny. I didn't know where my boy was then, or what I was doing, or anything at all, really. As you'll soon be able to tell. He chuckled weakly over the self-derisive comment. It didn't do much to lighten anyone's mood, including his own. He remained wistful. I was sitting around on a curb when Jenny strolled up the road, heading home. I knew her, or I knew of her. I'd met Pamela and Nolani already. Talking to them is how Cove got away from me. Cliff shook his head, trying not to get too lost in his complicated mess of thoughts on those times. But that's not the point. What matters is that I'd heard Jenny was their 8-year-old, the same age as my Cove, and that Jenny was the only one that age in the neighborhood. In my infinite wisdom, I'd picked out a place that wasn't exactly a family-friendly community. It was mostly a bunch of retired vacationers. He gritted his teeth and placed a hand to his forehead, feeling the sting of that day as if it was fresh. And speaking of, did I mention it was the start of summer break when we moved? What was my little boy going to do now that I dragged him out there? I wanted him to have someone to play with, someone he could talk to. I wanted him to be happy. There was a heart-wrenching crack in Cliff's voice as he spoke about that his feelings had truly been. At that moment, everything was going wrong. It felt like a dead end no matter which way I went, and I was so sure that there wouldn't be anyone for Cove if it wasn't Jenny. In one more valiant effort to try not to make the mood of your wedding too heavy, Cliff gave a goofy shrug. So I offered Jenny $20 to be his friend. It's just funny to me. The straight line of his shoulders lowered on each side like a roof sagging after years of having to stay solid. Maybe that's not the word. What I'm saying is that all my worries and regrets were at their peak. I was acting crazy, I know it now. But somehow it still turned out that there really wasn't anyone else for him, or not anyone better for him anyway. Nobody else in this world who can be there for Cove the way she can. The sentence remained unfinished. As much as he tried, Cliff couldn't put the words together to express what it meant to him. Cliff placed a hand against his chest as his gaze lowered to the ground. His delicate words continued to be shared with a full gathering of people thanks to the mic, but it was as if Cliff was speaking only to his son. That day, such a long time ago at this point, when he found out about why me and Kira divorced, she was there. Jenny was there when the plan was just to go jet skiing. Then when that emotional bomb happened, she was still there. And when you felt ready to head back out to keep going forward, you just had to turn your head to see someone who was ready to go with you.
I'm so glad.
You had someone who supported you in ways I never could. It was just what I had hoped for. I was so relieved. He glanced forward once more, offering a smile directly to you. You're an amazing person, Jenny. Inhaling deeply through his nose, Cliff's stance pulled together tall and solid. His dark blue eyes shone with a depth to them as they met with the far brighter blue of his child's. Son, being your dad will always be the best thing I've done in my entire life, and getting that condo on that street was the luckiest card I ever drew. I bet you two would have found each other with or without that eventually, but because of it, my kid got to grow up right next to the person who could make him the happiest. I can't ask for more than that. And Jenny, you didn't need a dad with that great moms you've got, but I'm so thankful I still get to be yours. I love you both, and I'll keep loving you for the rest of the time I've got. Oh, tears streaked down Cove's face freely. He didn't fight their falling. I love you too. Oh. Watching you and your husband from where he stood, Cliff got misty-eyed himself. He reached to wipe his cheeks, completely forgetting there was a microphone in his hand. Cliff set it down, shyly waved over to the two of you and stepped away. He was then able to rub at the ever-growing tears. No one spoke or even moved as Cliff returned to his pot. When he was seated, Kira reached over to give his back a pat. He had done good. Then the mic sat there untouched. None of the attendees wanted to pick up after where it had been left off. That was going to be the final speech from your guests, you were certain. Cove's breath was shaky, taking in everything. A weepy smile reappeared on his face, the more it sunk in just how much he was cared for. He leaned against your side, pulling at the tablecloth and burying his face into your shoulder. You chuckled, feeling good. You shook your head amusedly. You were blushing wildly. You had a wry smile on your face after that. Your eyes were glossy. Your eyes were glossy. And you sat there completely still, and you gave Cove's cheek an encouraging pat, and you tucked your face into Cove's hair, and you brushed Cove's hair back soothingly. Slowly, deliberately, you stroked the smooth green strands of hair without disrupting Cove's positioning against your body. When a voice was amplified out across the whole space once more, it was expectedly your planner giving his appreciation for the cooperation again and announcing the closing of the speeches. But rather than leaving the microphone on the counter, he strolled up to your table with the device in hand. And before we shut this off for the night, would either of you like to give your own messages to your loved ones? Oh! Cove lifted his teary face up to acknowledge Baxter, pausing to sniff. I'll do it. Go for it, Cove. Mach bitte. Ich mag sowas nicht. Ich mag sowas nicht. Yes, please. I'd like to say something too. Yes, please. I think it will be fine with just Cove speaking. You shook your head, no. I think it will be fine with just Cove speaking. Ja. Ich kann das nicht. I'm sorry. Es ist nicht, dass ich nicht dankbar bin. Aber please. Das ist schon genug Aufmerksamkeit für mich. It was too much pressure to address an entire crowd, and you were confident that your husband could get the feelings across for the both of you.
Of course.
Of course, here you are. Cove used one hand to scrub his eyes and the other to accept the mic, drawing it in close. Too close. His murmur crackled uncomfortably loud, and Cove's arm sprung out straight instinctively to get the noisemaker away from him. He winced before much more cautiously lifting the mic towards his face. He cradled it in both hands, and his gaze dropped to the ground.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Really, seriously. His eyes closed completely as he paused to bite his lips. So glad to be here. And all those things you said were... There was a cracking strain to Cove's voice that wasn't caused by technical error. He was choking up. Each word had to be pushed out with dedicated effort. Really nice. I love you. As rapidly stuttered as it was, what he meant to express came through to you and the rest of the people there to hear it. Cove's earnest affection. In a fumbling shove that screeched out even more unintentional feedback, Cove returned the mic to Baxter. His now free hands moved to cover his mouth, and that brought the speeches to their last sentimental though ear-piercing note. Applausing erupted from table to table, and Baxter grinned approvingly.
Perfect.
Perfect. He took the microphone back with him as he rejoined with the other staff members in order to give you and Cove some space to yourselves. When the clapping subsided, emotions remained high. Further conversations were tentative and hushed for a time. But eventually, the happy chatter that frequented your reception filled the air again. It was an evening of good food and good company. The evening continued to slip by in a dreamy haze. Before you knew it, all the attendees had finished their main courses and the dishes had been swiftly cleared from the tables. In spite of this, everyone remained rooted in their seats. It was no secret that there was more to come. People were waiting eagerly for desserts, though none of them could match the vibrating anticipation of your husband. It was time for the cake. The cake. But before the big event, you had something else up your sleeve. The service returned to bestow the extra treats to your guests. Truly delightful trays of fancily plated fudge slices were delivered to the tables and distributed to the guests. The dishes had been carefully selected to match your color scheme. Mom grabbed Ma's arm as she saw what was coming, pointing at the plates with excitement. Ma gasped. The two of them oohed and ahed as the tray was set down and on the table. The servers vanished from the floor with impressive efficiency, allowing the wedding cake to take center stage. Set on a center table was a fully realized creation, a two-tiered rustic-style tan masterpiece. You were pleased to see that your guests were as smitten with it as you and Cove were. It's so charming, and the little details are beautifully done. Mom grinned. That's beautiful. It's so cool that you went with tan instead of just white, totally unpredictable. Baxter beckoned for you and Cove to come forward. You rose from your seats as one and crossed the floor to the display table where a waiting server offered the cutting knife to you both. The two of you took hold of the handle, hand over hand, so that you could make the incision as a team. Together you hovered the knife over the lowest layer of the cake. You glanced at Cove, who smiled wryly at you. It really was almost too beautiful to cut. But just almost, and your guests were waiting for their portions of the delicious cake. Carefully, so as to preserve the structure as much as possible for as long as you could, you pushed down with a knife. It slid through the cake easily, leaving a smooth cut all the way through. You and Cove drew the knife out, then made another cut in order to create a neat triangle of cake. The server produced a plate ready for the first slice. With a bit of shakiness and the motions between the two of you, you slipped the knife under the piece and transferred it to the waiting plate. The first slice was done. You gazed at the neatly cut cake with pride as you set down the knife. Cove beamed. It was a lovely moment. Now you couldn't wait to share the wonderful cake with your guests. Cove let out a thrilled squeak as he picked up the provided fork. Each aspect of it had been painstakingly planned to suit the occasion as well as your tastes. Now, at last, it was finally there for the eating. You were just as eager to eat it. You weren't going to hold back. You were looking forward to having a slice. You would have a taste, but were mostly happy for Cove. You were happy for Cove, though weren't going to eat the cake yourself. Ne, ganz im Ernst, da würde ich mich, glaube ich, drauf freuen. Ich mag zwar so Kuchen und sowas nicht so gerne, aber also die Hochzeitstorte, die macht man sich ja so, dass sie einem selbst auch ultra munden wird. You were looking forward to having a slice. And in short order, servings of cake were set down at each table, a neat triangular slice in front of every guest. As the crowd dug in, along came discussion on the dessert. Ooh, it's tasty. I love the filling. Your cousin wasn't the only one in the family who was so captivated by your cake. Ma uttered a dreamy sigh after each bite.
Wonderful.
Delicious. Cove stopped shoveling buttercream into his mouth long enough to give his own praises. I'm really glad we went with something that had fruit. There was no way it could be anything but great with that kind of flavor, but it's better than that. It's actually amazing. You admired the cake, committing each beautiful detail to memory before you took your first bite. You closed your eyes as you let it melt on your tongue, relishing the light and fluffy texture alongside the silky frosting. Each bite was savored until your plate was cleared. By that point, Kove was already on his second slice. By the time the meal was officially over, Kove had not only devoured 3 full-sized slices of cake, but he double-checked with Baxter about what would happen to any leftovers. Baxter had needed to reassure him that any remaining sections of the cake would be wrapped up to go home with the 2 of you. Egal, ich wollte gerade einen Gedankengang nennen, der ist mir sofort wieder weggeflogen. It was pleasant to sit back and relax for a while, giving your feet time to recuperate from a long day, but the lull did not last for long. Newly fueled by cake, the party was beginning to start again. The celebration was able to continue in earnest. Derek, Lee, Terry, and Miranda got the dance floor going. They took turns pulling silly moves and cheering each other on. Liz sang along to all the songs she knew whenever an old favorite from your life growing up together came on. Your 4 parents made their table base camp and cycled between catching up with other family in town and rejoining with one another. They spent much of the time trading sentimental stories about when their babies were just babies. Kove's one uncle showed off his classic magic tricks to celebrate the day. Your husband was far more enthusiastic about the stunts as a 23-year-old adult than he was as an 8-year-old child. During the entire time, more casual photos were snapped of the best and funniest moments. One was when Miranda got Terry to hold up her dress so she could do a handstand. He couldn't wait to see them fully developed. And many guests had been generous enough to bring presents that you and Kove might need. You'd finished opening each one and offering your thanks. Seafoam green towels, dishes, a water purifier, a framed picture of the sea with the words "Life's a beach" were just some of your takeaways for the day. The most common gift, however, was the safe bet of simply giving cash. You'd never seen so many $20 bills in one place. Your families had a sense of humor. Of course, the relationship that began with someone offering money would reach its head with that repeating. Your husband caught a glimpse of the silent amusement on your face. His mouth curved into a smirk as he watched you. You'd bet money that he knew exactly what was on your mind. Just a second, please. Oh no! Chat, wir sind fast fertig! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Jetzt habe ich im Prinzip doch durchgezogen. Aber ist okay. Ist okay. Good evening. Oops. Good evening. The distinct voice of your planner caught your attention. He approached with a polite wave.
You know,
The people you know are as welcome as you are. They've treated the staff, including myself, well throughout the reception. Kove puffed right up in hearing Baxter compliment the people he is close to. He could easily have been mistaken for a proud parent. As pleasant as he kept the pleasantries, Baxter was certain to get to the point of the conversation quickly.
well,
Well, I'm here to say that you've got the space for a few more hours, but there are no more planned events or responsibilities on your shoulders. The day went off exactly as intended. He pressed his hands against the bottom of his spine and leaned his torso back against them to stretch. For a single side word, Baxter let himself clock out of the work mindset. Hallelujah. But the metaphorical bell rang, and he returned promptly to providing his service, standing up perfectly straight and pointing his toes forward. You're free to simply enjoy yourselves however you want with the time that's left. Of course, I'll personally put out any fires if they do appear. You two don't need to worry about anything. Cool. Thank you for all of this. You really were the perfect guy to do it. Bax's brows curved, his eyes softened, and even pausing to steady himself didn't hide the emotion rich in his voice. That means a lot to me. Wait. Cove is right, you did fantastic. I knew you'd pull it off. You nodded along with Cove's words. Thank you for all your help. You're getting a 5-star review from us. It was so wonderful putting this together with you. Cove's right, you did fantastic. The smile already prominent on his face warmed further. Baxter ran his hand down his shirt, smoothing it out in a casual, fluid motion.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. It's been a joy working with you two, truly. The mood was light all around until the feeling really hit Cove. He shifted in place uncomfortably, not knowing how to proceed from the point that was reached. So, does this mean we're friends? Oh! He blinked rapidly as his mouth closed into a tight line before saying a full thought. Baxter always needed a second to recover on the rare occasion that something knocked him off his game.
It's...
Well, that's your call, I'd say. Despite the prompting to talk, Cove couldn't put together an answer. We're definitely friends. I'd like to be friends. I think we're friends. We've always been friends since way back. It's so funny how you both still can barely talk to each other. We're friends. You gave Cove a confirming nod. We've always been friends since way back. Two pairs of eyes from two very different men sat on you, though eventually moving to look at one another. Smiles returned to both their features. As Baxter would say, it was settled. To solidify the friendship, Baxter offered you his hand to shake once more. You gladly reciprocated. You shyly dipped your head, keeping your hands down. Ich dachte, jetzt wäre hier noch so, ach, weg damit, umarmen. Wir sind doch die Huggies. You gladly reciprocated. Gott, dieses Wort. Your hands gripped together affectionately, lifting up and down once. Next, his hand went towards Cove. He held it out evenly with confidence, not from a want to be self-assured, but he was actually certain that they had a closer relationship now. Cove looked down at it, considering, but he ultimately raised his arm and shoulders in a motion that was both an awkward shrug and an invitation to hug instead. Warum durfte ich das nicht machen? The loop-sided grin he gave was contagious, and Baxter took hold of Cove while positively beaming. Baxter was only tall enough to bring his chin to Cove's shoulder. Welcome to the small side. Baxter was only tall enough to bring his chin to Cove's shoulder, but he rested it there comfortably. Cove chuckled in bemusement. It took a long time, but he had been won over to Baxter's side. He gave his new friend a pat on the back before they ended the embrace amicably. I hope you enjoy your post-wedding bliss as long as you can, but when life settles back down to normal, we should have dinner. I know some good places.
I guess.
That'd be nice. I guess we'll call you? Definitely. We'd love to get together again.
Perfect.
Perfect. And congratulations on your lovely day. He then quite literally bowed out, tipping one foot back and inkling forward. He kept his head lifted up with that curled grin you'd become so used to featured prominently on his face. Baxter left the two of you there, disappearing into the crowd of figures all in black to help keep the event running as smoothly as possible. You thought back to the very start of that special day when Baxter promised he'd congratulate you when it was over. So, okay. He'd congratulate you when it was over. That gave his parting words an extra sense of finality. But it wouldn't be a real goodbye. This time Baxter would be a part of your lives for as long as he was welcome in it. You believed him in that. With the staff busy and the guests mingling with each other, you and Cove had a moment completely to yourself since the wedding first began that morning. You knew for certain that you could relax when you caught Cove pulling into a big stretch. His torso twisted to one side as his hands rose up as high as he could get them. He had to fight a bit against the crisp, fitted shirt he was buttoned into, but Cove was persistent. His eyes had been closed when he worked out the last of the jitters he'd carried throughout the day, but his gaze landed on you as soon as he finished. There was a radiant warmth in his expression as he spoke to you with an eased heart. If you don't mind, I want to dance with you again before it's over. Aww. I would love to. I've been waiting for you to ask. I was about to ask the same thing. Of course, Cove. I've been waiting for you to ask. He smiled openly and welcomely. It was more inviting than his direct words had been. As he had in the past and as you were certain he'd do in the future, Cove lifted his hand for you to take. You accepted then, as you always would. You and your husband slipped away from the main seating area out to the center of the space. By that late hour, the dance floor had mostly emptied. Your fingers remained linked as you both took hold of the other with your second hands, taking form for a dance. Cove brought his chest near enough to brush against yours and rested his cheek on the edge of your forehead. He was careful not to mess up your hair. Slowly, calming music drifted through the air. It enveloped you and kept out the buzz of distant conversation still happening. You began to sway to the sound, cozy and content. It felt as though you and he were in your own world.
So...
Aww. So, well, Mrs. Holden, congratulations on your successful wedding. Congratulations to you too, Mr. Holden. Yes, it was highly successful. I love hearing you call me by that name. Thank you. Your heart pounded a little harder. I love hearing you call me by that name. Oh, I'm glad. I love being able to call you by it. And if you're wondering, my plan is to be the last person who gets to congratulate you tonight. Mit diesem Blick. Kauf Holden. Na, na, na. Mann, und ich bin so sad, dass das nicht im Spiel inkludiert ist, ne? Ah. He waggled his wiggly eyebrows, being intentionally silly. I'm rooting for you. You're such a goofball, you said affectionately. In that case, I'll cover my ears if anyone tries to congratulate me again. You giggled. He was adorable. He sighed softly and his shoulders lowered comfortably, but Cove suddenly perked back to attention when something struck him. Though I could just say it again when we get to the hotel room, I'd definitely be the last person to do it then. That's one of the perks of being married. I pretty much always get to be the first and the final with you. You for me too. I'm good with that. There's no one else I'd want to be my first and last for everything. Yes. Yes, da brauche ich nicht mal überlegen. Da brauche ich nicht mal das andere lesen. Thank you. In his glistening eyes, you could see how treasured you really were. Cove whispered heartfelt words.
See you tomorrow.
Oh, and I also get to say this for sure. See you tomorrow, Jenny. I'll see you tomorrow too. Cove pressed himself into you even more snugly and letting out a tiny thrilled squeak. Cove, is there anything you're hoping for in our lives after this? Now that we have a minute, I want to mention how you looked. Cove seemed like he had something on his mind. You gave him an encouraging smile. So, did you notice that I'm wearing an anklet? You let yourself quietly enjoy his company. You let yourself quietly enjoy his company. You kissed his lips. You gave every part of his face a kiss. You buried your face in his shoulder. You moved your hands to embrace him. You smiled blissfully. You moved your hands to embrace him. You held him comfortably, wishing you could stay right there forever. Lovingly, he stroked your back with the tips of his fingers. It was so warm. But then you heard your husband sigh wistfully. It all went by so fast. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't only mean the wedding, it's everything. Where did the years go? When did you and me become grown up? I have no idea. I don't feel grown up. Legally, it was when we turned 18 years of age. I think it happened a long time ago, we just didn't notice. You, the crybaby, grown up? I'm not sure about that one. You didn't have an answer. I have no idea. Yeah. And though his spirits carefully rose again as he spoke more lightly. I feel pretty good about getting older, not being a kid anymore, because I'm doing it with you. Before we could only pretend to play adult, and I was bad at it. Liz was right on that one, unfortunately. And now we're at our wedding. I know what it's like to be an adult, kind of. You just do it and keep going. I guess it's as simple as that. Und Kauf, pass auf, wenn du einfach mal über den Prozess und so nachdenkst, was das noch bedeuten kann. Hm? I wish I could have figured that out from the beginning. No, actually, I'm glad everything went the way it did. I am too. The song that blanket your discussion was at its final chorus as the sun's rays drifted further away. Night would fall soon. It was almost time to go. Too soon you would know what the ending note of your wedding was, the final glance, the last word. Those thoughts swirled in your mind until Cove brought you back to existing in the present where you belonged.
It's nice.
I think our life is really nice. Not letting either of you get lost in contemplation again, Cove suddenly clapped both his hands against your shoulders with the utmost seriousness. You know, if you ever want to have another party like this, I'll do it. It can be every year, multiple times a year, whenever you feel like it. We'll keep Baxter in business forever. I love you, Cove, so much. Thank you for everything. I hope you understand how much you mean to me. You bet we'll have another. If it's with you, I'm up for anything. You know that. I love you so much. Tiny, delicate water drops pooled in the corner of his eyes. Cove let his hands travel from shoulders up to touch your face. He cradled you tenderly, never wanting to let go. What did I do to get to be with someone who's there for me? Someone who honestly cares about me? Well, I don't need an answer, really. I'm just grateful.
I love you.
I love you. I love you too, Jenny. Always. Nein! Ich hab's nicht geschafft, dieses Bild zu kriegen. Nein! Es ist vorbei. Gallery. Was ist ein Character Creator? Achso, das bin ich. Nee. Wie komme ich hier raus? Ja, well, ich weiß jetzt nicht, was ich gemacht habe. Ich schätze mal, das ist dann wieder für irgendwas Neues oder so. Ja, das war jetzt ein sehr schönes Ende. Ich mache mich mal groß. Verabschiede mich. So. Das war ein sehr schönes Ende. Wir haben unsere Hochzeit mit Cove gefeiert und leben jetzt hoffentlich glücklich bis ans Ende unserer Jahre. Und ja, war sehr schön. Ich hoffe, euch hat die Reise mit Cove gefallen. Die ging ja jetzt ziemlich lang. Also ich weiß gar nicht, wie lange wir das Spiel gespielt haben. 1 Jahr oder so. Und ja. Wir lassen die Feier jetzt einfach verdauen. Und also mir hat das Spiel super gefallen und ich werde es auch gut in Erinnerung behalten. War einfach schön. Und dann sage ich einfach Danke fürs Dabeisein und tschüssi.